So this time I'm going to give some advice based on a comment that we got from a viewer. First off, thanks a lot for your comment. I'll post it up right here so you guys can read it. And basically, I'll call him Jay. He's been having a little trouble finding someone while living in Japan. I took some notes, and what I'm going to do is give some advice based on his comment. Hopefully by the end of this, I'll give not only him, but everyone a better idea about how to approach finding like someone if you've been living in Japan for a while or you're planning on coming here. It's not only going to be like love doctor advice, it's also going to be a little bit of self-assessment because I don't have specific details about his situation or your situation. So I'm going to try the best I can to give general advice that will be useful for you regardless of your situation, how long you've been in Japan, or your age group, etc., etc. So I did a live stream before and I mentioned some of the points I'm about to go over, but I can't understate how important this is, not only in your home country, but I think especially in Japan, and I'll explain why in a minute. But before thinking about how to get a partner, I just think you really need to take a look at yourself, not in a negative way, in a self-assessment kind of way, to give you a better idea of what kind of partners you're looking for and where you stand in the Japanese dating scene. So let's go through it. First, I'd say there are three main factors you need to focus on: your age, your employment status, and your economic status. First off, your age. How old are you? Of course. Are you in your 20s, 30s, or 40s? Now, this might seem like pretty simple in your home country, but it's very, very, very important here in Japan because the mentality of Japanese women is completely different depending on which decade of their life they're in. Let me break it down for you. Let's say you're looking for someone who's your exact same age and you're in your early to mid 20s. Pretty much, generally speaking, women at that time aren't really thinking too much about, the guy's career. They just want someone to fall in love with or even have fun with, hang out, date. And that's pretty much what you're going to be dealing with in the dating market. Late 20s, it changes. Then Japanese women start to become much more married-minded. I say about 27 years old. And that's when they're really looking for to date, but with the expectancy of moving in the direction of marriage, someone with a promising career who can provide a stable life for them. Not in a gold digger kind of way, but in a way that they can have, a house, kids, or something like that. 30s is a little bit different. 30s, if you're dating a woman in their 30s, they're looking for someone who's pretty much established, who they can kind of plug in and on the marriage train pretty much right away. Even if you're dating, I'd probably say you only got like about a year or two before like marriage, kids really comes up heavy. So even if she is like feeling you for your personality, marriage is definitely in the back of her mind from day one. 40s might be a little bit different. She might be established in her career a bit more. Maybe kids are out of the picture for her, so she's looking for a life partner. I hear a lot of Japanese women say they just don't want to die alone, so they want someone to make them happy, they can spend the rest of their days with. So they might be just looking for a partner to be with, more romance, similar to the early 20s, but still career would be important, in that situation. Now, of course, your employment situation is another little tricky thing that I had to learn as well in my time in Japan. Now, for example, let's imagine, you have a job and you might think maybe you have like I don't know what you do, but let's say you have a stable job, a good job, that pays enough to meet all of your needs. Again, depending on your age group, you have to understand that the Japanese woman is thinking, do you have enough money to pay to support her and a family? That's going to be foremost on her mind. Again, not in a gold digger way, in a basic necessities kind of way, just because the way this country is set up, generally speaking, once she gets married, her career is probably going to be derailed in some sort of way, and she's going to be looking at you to kind of pick up the slack or support her, which also leads to what type of employee you are. Are you a regular employee or seishain? Or are you a freelancer, or are you a part-time worker, or like what are you doing? Of course, it's not only how much money you make, but what type of job you make. And that comes into a lot of different factors because generally speaking, Japanese people believe that once you are seishain or a regular employee, then you have kind of safety and she can kind of relax a little bit. Also, renting a house, getting a mortgage, all of those things become infinitely easier if you are, say, Cheyenne. That is, unless you have your own business or something like that. Even in that situation, you would have to be making enough money to where she could realistically, I don't want to say balling out of control, but you're making enough where she would feel comfortable not really relying on her career so much. And I think that hurdle is a bit high, especially since you've been in Japan for a year. Again, I don't know what you do. But anyone in general, I would say, take that self-assessment, your age, your employment status, and also how long you plan on being in Japan. Because if you only plan on being here for a short time, for example, and you're in your 30s, then that kind of, eliminates a lot of Japanese women. Also, another thing I forgot to mention is your language ability. Like, can you speak Japanese? Because if you can only speak English, that really limits the amount of Japanese women that you really have access to. Like, I know for me, even though like I was in a relationship at the time, just going out talking to friends and stuff, like hanging out with friends, being a wingman, stuff like that, seeing what was going on around me, the amount of communication and the amount of like women that me and my friends could actually talk with increased infinitely the better our Japanese got. And after I think like 3 or 4 years of being here, we kind of got a better grasp of the language, got to understand the lay of the land quite a bit more, and we started knowing what we were doing when we were going out. And just being able to talk to women who aren't interested in foreign guys at all is a completely different ball game than only being limited to the ones who are just being like, wow, the gaijin hunters or things like that. That's you don't really want to just be stuck in that mode, because for a lot of different reasons. I won't even get into it in this video, but just for your long-term happiness, it would be better to find someone that you can kind of connect with on a deeper level, instead of someone who's like, ooh, he's not Japanese, I want his DNA to have babies with, or something like that. Another important thing is your location. Again, I didn't get that in your comment, but you also have to think about, where are you? Are you in a major city? Are you in a small town? Are you in Tokyo, Okinawa, Osaka, the countryside in like Ibaraki somewhere, for example? Like, where are you? And because that really dictates the pool of women that you're dealing with. My image, again, I really only have so much experience with the Tokyo metropolitan area, but my image is that the dating scene in smaller towns exists, but it's mainly marriage minded and marriage focused. So any women that you are going to meet, probably I wouldn't expect them to speak English so much. I wouldn't expect that many gaijin hunters, but I would expect them to be looking for a husband, not to like hang out casually and stuff like that. And I'd say those factors are something that you're gonna really need to think about before you start actually going out to pursue them. If your Japanese isn't up to par, if your career isn't on course, if your, let's say your game, for example, isn't where it needs to be, if you're a little bit older, let's say over 25 or pushing 30, then I would say it kind of sucks, but spend like 1 year or 2 years not even thinking about women so much, and really focusing on leveling up your skills. If you plan on being in Japan for a while, get your Japanese skills up to par. Bang out what career you want to do, get settled into a semi-permanent place, brush up on yourself as well. Just improve yourself to make you a much more attractive life partner. It sounds kind of crappy. It sounds kind of red pillish and all that. I'm not doing that, but it is a really important thing. I had to do it in my life, not just for hunting women, just like at a certain point in life in Japan. Okay, what am I doing here? I'm not just spinning my wheels, happy to be in Japan. I'm trying to set down roots and figure out how I'm going to make a life here. And I think about it seems like from the comment, a year, 2 years, you kind of get to that point where it's not like you're not in like Disneyland anymore. You're just not like, wow, there's onigiris in the convenience store anymore. You understand everyday life here, and you've gotten a routine. So now, what's the next stage of what you want to build here, and how long do you want to build it for, and how much effort do you want to put into that? That's like a real hard question that you need to ask, especially if you're pushing 30 here, especially anything over 30. In your 20s, you can still hang out and have fun and do things like that, but once you start hitting that 26, 27, 28 range, you'll kind of notice that the landscape changes quite a bit. And I talk to younger colleagues or just dudes in Tokyo about this as well. And I tell them, just level yourself up. There'll be more than enough women for you available if you hit those three marks, and you'll have kind of the pick of the litter to really choose from. Especially if you're decently put together guy, decently looking, and you have kind of something going on for yourself, and you're able to communicate. There'll be more than enough women to choose from if you put yourself out there after you're already established and have your feet on solid ground. That's, I think, the most important thing to understand for anyone who's over 25 and wants to be here for a reasonably long period of time. Okay, so now that we've got that out of the way, now we're going to get to the good stuff, okay? And I'm going to give you some concrete, places, examples, things that I would do if I was here for a year and, was really having a bit of trouble finding someone or dating someone. I took notes. I even asked some of my students about it, and I got like one or two really, really good ideas. And I think it will be helpful for not only to answer your question, but anyone else who's watching this in the future. Let me know with a comment or like or whatever if it helps, or you have any other questions. I'm more than happy to do follow-up videos for this. I want to help anyone else out there who's either thinking about coming to Japan or coming here any way that I can. So the first thing I really recommend is finding a regular spot. You got to find some place to be, right? Like, you can't just be like grasping at straws, even though I know apps and things like that are the way everyone goes nowadays. But I'm a firm believer that when you have a spot that you go to on a regular basis, Japanese people know who you are and they begin to open up to you, right? If you're just going to different places like one time, two times, you go to a bar here, a club here, trying to pick up people here, trying to talk to people here, you're not really, no one knows you. You're just known as the foreign guy who popped up every now and then, who popped up one time and disappeared. So, but if you think about it, if you go to a place like, let's say you go to the same bar or you go to the same restaurant or the same live house once a week, or, to hear a band once a week, and the manager knows who you are, and, you see people a few times, you might see a woman there, you might see a girl there, you might have a conversation with someone and then see them next time, and then you see them the next time. And then by the third time you see them, they become more comfortable with you, and then they start to let their guard down. This is also why speaking Japanese becomes a big thing, because you can imagine if you're only speaking English to people, you're going to be seen more as an outsider, unless there's someone who's maybe a gaijin hunter or a Japanese guy who really wants to speak English. But then you're kind of dependent on them to facilitate you meeting someone. But if you can actually communicate on equal terms with Japanese people at a decent level, and they're seeing you on a regular basis, you begin to be seen as equal. They find out who you are. They begin to trust you more, and either more willing to, talk to you more openly on a deeper level, exchange information with you, or even maybe invite you to another event where you might meet someone. That's, I think, the key to this. And that's where, finding a place to stay, whatever you're into, is going to be a really major thing. All of my advice, this is kind of the most, across the board kind of thing. It's not gonna, if you really want to find someone, it's generally speaking, like, it's not best to just kind of go roughshod all over the place. You're gonna have to plant your roots somewhere, just to make connections here. And like, not only for dating, not only for love, but just for life, you gotta have roots somewhere in Japan. Japan's a very community oriented society, and if you don't have roots anywhere, you're just drifting in the wind, and over time that will start to wear you down. So yeah, you heard me talk about, performance houses. Probably a bar with a DJ would be great. For the otaku people, one of my students gave me a great idea. Go to otaku bars. And I'm going to leave a link to a website that my student and I found together with a list of a bunch of different otaku bars. I think definitely in the Tokyo area. It might even be all over Japan. But for her, like, basically this woman, she's in her like late 50s, and her daughter is in her early 30s. I think she's in her maybe 60s. Her daughter is in her early 30s, single, and goes to otaku bars all the time. And basically my student was like, it's just full with women. Again, I would say, my advice, go there, not trying to holler at someone the first time though. Because of course, if it's full of women and they're otaku women, they're going to be on guard. Like, what's this foreign guy doing here? That's the first thing they're gonna think, And of course, if you're on demon time trying to like, smash and dash, everyone's gonna know, even if they don't really let on. So you're gonna disarm people automatically if you don't try, if you just hang out, smile, or maybe strike up a conversation with the owner or the person behind the bar, because they're gonna be like, what's this foreign person doing here? And then if you can speak in Japanese and explain you're a really big fan of the anime, and you're talking about the anime, and you're not even looking at any of the women there, their interest is automatically gonna be piqued. Like, okay, there's this foreign guy and he really likes blah 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 anime, and then you just fade off into the background. Next time you come back, you're going to have way more people wanting to talk to you. And then the third time and the fourth time. And next thing you know, by like 2-3 months down the road, all of them are going to know you. All of them are going to be talking about how cute you are. And especially if you're somewhat established in your career, all of them are going to want to date you. Then you got your pick of the litter. So otaku bar, if you're an otaku, I think is a great idea. Same thing goes for like music genres. If you're into heavy metal, if you're into, there's like in every major city, there's gonna be some type of bar. You just gotta do a bit of digging, and some type of place that matches your interest, and really go into there. Find one that you like, hop around, find one that you like. If you drink, of course. If you don't drink, I have some other options for you. But for those who like drinking and nightlife, kind of like me, this is a 100% must option. Next, you got hobbies. Again, I'm going to have to look at my notes here because I have a bunch of stuff that I wrote down. But yeah, you're going to have hobbies. For example, hobby-related classes, meetups, community center classes, which can be iffy depending on the situation. But community center classes, meetups.com is a great place as well if you haven't tried. I wrote down a few that I thought, okay, if I'm trying to meet someone, what in the Tokyo area, what type of meetups would I go to? So I took a few minutes and I wrote a few of them, and I'll just bang through these. Camping, hiking, but I would do it with Japanese people only. Photography, soccer meetups, not so much playing soccer, but if if someone who's into a soccer team and you like soccer, or if you think soccer's okay, going to meetups related to that team. Japanese people are super hardcore soccer fans, so if you have a team that you like, or you're into a sports team or whatever, rugby, basketball, it doesn't matter, you're going to be able to find someone related to that group, plug into them, go on a regular basis, and I can almost guarantee you'll find a young Japanese woman who's super happy to go to games with you and have a companion to go with her. 120%. Sports, soccer, things like that. Painting, for example, cooking, as well. I don't really recommend language exchange or international parties so much, just because that's a whole nother thing. I have another video in the pipeline that I want to do when I have a chance, talking about trying to find someone at international meetups and things like that. It's just a whole different ball game for me. And if you haven't been able to find someone there, I wouldn't go there with the expectation of finding someone, generally speaking. The purpose of the Japanese women there are completely different. But again, I don't want to get sidetracked. There is another video I want to do related to that. But I would be cautious about international meetups. I would only go if there's a club or a bar that speaks to you, a place that you would want to hang out anyway. Then I would say, yeah. I do know several former coworkers who did, again, this is a long time ago, who did meet several people at international meetups, but it was at nightclubs, it was at bars. It wasn't just like, let's hang out in the room and speak English together. That is not really conducive to finding a partner, in my opinion. It can be done, but it wouldn't be my recommendation. It wouldn't be my go-to if I were trying to find someone. Foreign friends, plugging into a group of foreign friends, groups, hobbies, dance parties, salsa dance, for example. My wife used to dance salsa. There were plenty of people of those. House parties related to that. Your coworkers, or depending on what you do, things, look for those areas. But basically, those are going to be the ones that will help you get your foot in the ground. But the main thing is not going to happen like one time, especially if you're looking for something more concrete. I would say stay away from the gaijin hunters. Like, even if you don't really want to seriously date a gaijin hunter, trust me, like it might seem easy in the beginning at first. It might be easy at first. It'll be easy at first, but there is a motto that things that are easy in the beginning become more difficult later, and things that are more difficult in the beginning become easier later. And with gaijin hunters, like, I've heard several nightmare stories. I've seen several situations. Basically, long story short, a gaijin hunter will flip on you in a second. That's my take on gaijin hunters. Like, I'm not, hey, if you married one, I'm sorry, but you probably know what I'm talking about. They're gonna be much more emotionally unstable, if you will, and they'll kind of, because they're putting on kind of a front to get what they want, but it's really superficial. So once you're not the fantasy of what they want, things change, in the blink of an eye. It could be at the beginning of the relationship, it could be while you're dating seriously, or it could be after marriage for some people who are unlucky enough to have that type of situation. I've seen and heard a wide variety of those type of situations, and generally speaking, that's, to me, they're gonna flip on you, right? So just stay away from them. Trust me. Even if I understand you're lonely, Japan can be a lonely place, but you just don't want to do it to yourself. Okay, but check out another video related to this, and also the links below. I hope it helped.